Alright, welcome back fans of WinningGalaxyEmpire.com, the only place that you're going to find accurate and up-to-date information on the web. So this is one of my favorite video tutorials here right now because I've got some delicious candy that I'm going to be eating at the conclusion of this video. So hopefully I don't have to do any retakes whenever I go back because this is probably all going to be gone. Now we're at part 3 of Combat Nebbing versus Super Nebbing. We've already discussed the basics of Combat Nebbing and what happens to your fleet as you pull in more ships and face combat or run into aliens and pirates in the Neb. But we also want to go ahead and represent the Super Nebbing fleet, the one that has the massive number of light fighters. Now if these two fleets were to meet, we've already gone through exactly how the sustained damage breaks out and the attacks are distributed and how you get the additional damage from it. And you know, we see this pile isn't really that much bigger than this pile. So I guess that's kind of a concern. We're assuming that both of these fleets are about equal in power. You know, we're spread out over here. We have stronger ships over here. You know, they were heavier, so we pulled fewer of them in from the Neb. In this one, we pulled more numbers of them in from the Neb, but they're all the light fighters, the weaker ones. Now, the way damage works, this is where we're going to get into a fun bug that TAP has built into the battle system. It's been reported tons of times. I've spoken with the Game Master about this. You know, gosh, I even emailed the vice president or president of Tap for Fun to address this with him and see if we could get some kind of a response out of him. We're connected on LinkedIn. But anyways, you know, this problem just hasn't been fixed. It's been around for at least a year and a half, ever since Galaxy Empire Galaxy Empire Evolved came out. So this is the bug. All right, this is what happens, and this is why it's not a good idea to have a Combat Nebbing fleet versus a Super Nebbing fleet. Now we've got all of our attacks. Okay, this is all of our damage. It's all of our attack power that's been separated out from this. Okay, we pull it off of our ships, and this is the first round of battle. You know, these attacks are going to simultaneously move towards each other's fleets. Okay, it's like just all these salvos kind of go as one. Now, as these fleets hit each other, and it happens simultaneously, there is the death order. You know, there's the light fighters will die before heavy fighters. You know, and they'll die before the cruisers, they'll die before the battleships. The only exception to this is going to be the probes, which sometimes die first, sometimes they die after colony ships, sometimes they die in the middle of colony ships being hit, you know, during different rounds. Probes are a little screwed up at this point. But for the most part, since we're just dealing with these 4 types of ships and this one type of ship, it's fairly easy to represent here. Now, all these attacks will come, and we know that, you know, one attack is not actually going to kill one ship. But all these attacks are going to come, and they're going to eliminate, you know, a good portion of this. You know, a fairly big section. Okay, so we're going to see this many ships that are going to be eliminated as a result of these attacks that came from this side over here. Now this side, now this is where the bug comes in that I want to address. These attacks are going to come at these ships. Now normally you would think that, you know, the attacks would hit. You know, you're going to have to take, you know, a bunch of the attacks off to register some of those, and you know, the attacks would continue going down the death order, and you know, you'll get probably through here maybe to get all of these out of the way, and then, you know, you pull away maybe a few more, and then, you know, that's how an attack would work. You know, theoretically, that's what you would think would happen. You know, each ship type would absorb some of the damage and move on, and then you'd have, you know, these stronger ships at the end, which ultimately would, you know, supposedly overpower the light fighters. Now here's what really happens, and you can test this yourself, by the way. Send a specific number of, you know, ships to the dwarf system. Keep track of what your damage is each round, and check it and really monitor the battle report and see what happens. But these attacks are going to come. These ships here are going to notice that these attacks are coming, and they're going to say, "Oh shit, I'm going to die," and they're just going to bail out of the way and remove themselves from battle. You know, a few will come back at the end of the battle, you know, in recovery. But all of this damage, none of it was absorbed. It all goes on to the next ship. Because you sent enough power to eliminate an entire ship type. Does that make sense? So now these ships say, "Oh shit, we've got a big pile of attack coming at us. Better get the hell out of the way." And they do. And you'll get a few that'll come back after the recovery at the end of the battle, but they absorb none of the damage. So the damage continues to move on. Same thing. oh shit, let's get out of the way. They all fly off. And a few come back, you know, for recovery at the end of the battle. You guys seeing the pattern here? What do you think is going to happen with these? Yep, that's right. Oh shit, get out of the way. And at this point, you have wiped all of the light fighters. You have light fighters up here, sorry. I'm going to push them back in. We've wiped all of the light fighters, all of the heavy fighters, all of the cruisers, all of the battleships. And all of this damage now is going on down the line to the next ship type. They're going to hit your small cargoes, they're going to hit your large cargoes, your colony, your wrecks, your probes. They're going to run into your dreadnoughts, bombers, destroyers. And every time that this amount of damage would be enough to wipe out that one ship type, that ship's just going to leave battle and all that damage is going to continue to roll over. Now I've called this the Trample effect because I used to be a Magic nerd and this was kind of the closest thing that I could figure to describe it. But basically if damage would be done beyond that creature, you know, that attack, all that damage that's left over would continue on to hit the player. Well, in this case, it's not just all the damage that's left over, it's all of the damage would go on to continue and hit the next ship. All of the initial damage. This never gets absorbed. And that's the bug in the battle system right now. It's been around for about a year and a half. So hopefully I just blew your guys' minds about something that's really awesome. And it probably explains a little bit about why you've been losing some fortress battles that you know, you probably thought you were going to win because your morale was a lot higher. If you send in a balanced fleet to the fortress and you've got an opponent fleet who, you know, stuffs up, you know, just a ton of light fighters, not only is morale not balanced in itself, you know, these light fighters are sometimes 10 times more powerful than the morale that's given for you know, like the Devourers, I think. So you know, if you send an equal power amount of Devourers, it's going to say that you have 10 times more morale than your opponent does, but you're equal in power. So that's crazy. And then number two, if you've got a well-balanced fleet, they're all just going to continually fall over and over and over. The only way to stop this fleet is to provide one ship type that has enough, let's say it would be this one, that has enough of that ship type to actually absorb this damage and not die in a single round, which would be great. You know, say you absorb all this stuff, bam, you know, now these ships remain. But round two comes and the same thing happens. All this attack comes out again. Now these guys get out of the way, you know, this time. So basically you want to be able to sustain every single round of damage in your light fighters. And if you do that, all the rest of your ships are protected. And the chances are, if you've got enough light fighters to absorb all of that damage, you've got enough to roll over your opponent's damage or your opponent's armor and wipe out their entire ship types and be able to take advantage of kind of like that bonus damage that you get dealt, that trample damage where it just continually rolls over the rest of the fleet. So you'll see a lot of the fortress battles that will be won in one round. Now mathematically it will eventually happen where you're going to have you know, two fleets that come in that are well balanced, and they're each going to have, you know, what is there, like 20 ship types or something like that. Let me look here real fast. Sorry, 16 ship types. Okay, so you've got 16 different types of ships that you could send into the fortress. And you know, eventually what's going to happen is you'll have enough power on this side to roll over the highest armored ship on this side, and the same thing, they'll have enough power to roll over the highest armored ship on this side. And you're going to have a draw where both sides defeat each other completely, they wipe each other. So then, of course, you know, the winner's determined by whoever has the highest morale, which is kind of bullshit, but hey, let's address that with tap. So here's you know, here's basically the summation of Combat Nebbing versus Probe Nebbing. Combat Nebbing is never going to win. You're going to have to stop sending your ships in. You won't be able to grow as fast for as long, and eventually you'll find that you were not efficient. You've used up all of your gas, and you can no longer even probe neb as efficiently as the people who've been super nebbing since the beginning. You may end up with a lot of crap ships. You've got all those small cargo, all those large cargo, colony wrecks. Now, with the addition of the level cap 10 to nanites, well, guess what we're going to be using all those ships for? To make a ton of resources, so that way we can start building a lot of ships. If you've got a level 10, if you've got a level 10 nanite on a planet with a level 21 shipyard, Admiral 2, and a VIP 6, which I think just about everybody probably has at this point, well, with the exception of the nanite, you're producing somewhere between 950 to a million, 950,000 to a million destroyers in 1 week. That's crazy. That's 128 times more than what you're actually producing right now if you've got a level 3 nanite. So just think about how much money you spent, or how many resources you spend on those ship builds, those weekly ship builds that you're queuing up. I think for me, I've got 10 planets. You know, I'm using roughly 10 billion resources in metal and 6 billion in crystal. You know, so multiply that by 128, and that's what I'm going to need for a weekly build once I get it capped out at level 10 nanites on each of my planets. So that's where you're going to need all those resources. So, you know, all these combat ships are great that you have, but they're just going to get rolled over by these light fighters. You're not going to be able to roll over the light fighters because all that armor is you know, combined into that one ship type. And this one, it's balanced, it's spread out. And you'd think